Everybody, thanks so much for stopping by another live episode of Real Estate Titans. I'm your host, Greg Fowler, traveling throughout the marketplace, interviewing the top real estate professionals in our field, from realtors, lenders, builders, developers, residential or commercial, essentially gathering insight, inspiration, really drives and motivates these top producers above and beyond everybody else in what I would like to consider a real estate titan. Our very special guest and featured titan for today, Greg Shelley. Greg, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it, man. I really do. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So we're just going to dive into the series of questions that I go through on every episode with every featured Titan, just to get a window into who you are as a man, what you've done with your business, and what you continue to do with the legacy that you're leaving here in this marketplace. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, Greg. I appreciate it. A little bit about myself. My name is Greg Shelley. I work with U.S. Bank Home Mortgage. I'm the sales manager for Southern Colorado. And I moved out here from California 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so went to school in Santa Cruz and grew up in Santa Barbara County. And have been in Colorado Springs, as I mentioned, 20 years. And got into lending in 2002. So 16 years been in lending now.
Well, unreal, man. Time flies. 16 years. I mean, 20 years in the marketplace, that's changed a lot, right? I mean, just in the Springs in general.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were doing, business a little differently back then, so it's changed substantially, to say the least, yeah.
I hear you. So, going through the progression, I guess, what got you into the business in the first place?
So, I was actually, interestingly enough, about as one side as you can get from what I'm doing now. I was spending my days, standing in a river teaching people how to fish. So I was a guide on the South Platte River. I did that for about 4 years, and before I started doing that, which was in '98, I met a guy that I worked for briefly before I got into that. Quinn White, and Quinn is the owner of Fidelity Mortgage Solutions, and for those of you that don't know Quinn, he's an awesome human being. So
absolutely true. Hey Quinn, if you're watching.
Hey buddy, what's up, man? Anyway, so he called me one day, and it was interesting because I was just about ready to start. I had an Alaska thing ready to go. I had a lodge to work at. I was ready to make the leap and leave the Platte behind and go out to Alaska and start guiding. And Quinn called and said, hey man, what have you been doing? And I haven't talked to you for a long time, and I'm in this mortgage thing now, and I thought of you and thought you might be really good at it. And I was just totally disinterested. I mean, I was like, really? I mean, mortgage. So anyway, I wanted to see him, right, because we were friends, and it had been a while since we'd connected. So I said, look, I'll come down and visit with you. So I went down, and we talked, and he really liked it, and I respected what he had to say about it, and it struck an interest, and so I decided to go ahead and jump in.
Wow.
And that was 16 years ago. So.
Unreal. And the change through the industry is crazy. And you've been through different operations, and you're in a slightly different role now. But it's pretty insane out there. I mean, there's so many different avenues, and there's a lot of LOs that I'm sure they're watching this. And it's not the easiest business in the world, but it yields a lot of positivity in your life. And
I mean, my wife is a loan officer. Shelley. Yeah, I know.
Hey, Shelley.
Hi, honey. So Shelley works with Integrity Mortgage and Financial, and I met Shelley in 2003, and that's where we met. So we've been together for almost 16 years and married for 8 years. And so, I met her in the industry, and she's still doing it and very successful, and she's an awesome person too. So.
She is good people, for sure. And I think that this is a good tail into the next question, a part of what's your why, Greg? I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning, makes you do what you do to the level that you've done in that over all these years? Seriously.
Well, I have a lot of whys, right? I mean, I'm just a very blessed person. I mean, I am. I have a wonderful family. I have an awesome wife. I have a 4-year-old son, Jackson. You know, we've got another one. We're expecting November 11th, as you know.
Congrats, man. That's good.
We've got a nice young start to having newborns in the house at the ripe age of 47.
That's great, man.
But yeah, I mean, you know, and not to mention just, you know, the friends that I've got, the friends that I've met in this business, the people that I've met, the city that we live in, the community that we live in. I mean, I love Colorado Springs. You know, when I moved out here from California, my intention was to live here for a year, and that was 20 years ago.
Wow.
We entertained moving back to California a few years ago, and we have no intentions on ever going back. Well, we may retire in Lake Tahoe one day, possibly. But
Yeah, that's different.
yeah, it is, because it's a long way away, Greg.
You're not that old, Greg. Come on, that's
well, I'm a long way from retirement. But anyway, so I have so many whys, right? I have an amazing company that I work for, U.S. Bank. They've given me an amazing opportunity to be a sales manager and to, you know, create my own team of people here in Southern Colorado. I love the people that I work with. They're amazing people, and so it's just, I like to interact with them. I like to assist with their growth. I like to watch their success. If I can be a part of that, for me, it's incredibly gratifying. And that's why I kind of shifted gears. I was in the origination, you know, part of it for years, and, you know, it's an incredibly gratifying position as well. But it's, and certainly not to take anything away from a loan officer, but it's a very, you know, your own business type of thing. And so I always kind of enjoyed being successful myself, but also being able to be a part of other people's success. So the managerial piece was very appealing, and it's been, I've been here almost 4 years, and it's just been an awesome place to be. I couldn't be happier where I'm at. So there's a few whys for you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned some huge ones too. You're talking about your family, right, which is crucial. Your team, which is awesome, because not everybody feels that way. It's just a job, right? 9 to 5. They punch in, punch out. They don't care. The fact that you do care. Everybody that I talk to in your operation, they care for you, man. I mean, they definitely feel that love and support. So I think that does matter. You know, and then something that you really hit on, which I thought was neat, that not a lot of our Titans on this series have really brought up, is community. I mean, you love this place. And not to say that they don't.
I mean, hey, I've lived in some beautiful places. I grew up in Santa Barbara County, and, you know, I went to school in Santa Cruz, and they're amazing places. I mean, we've got a place in Lake Tahoe, and they're incredible places, right?
Right.
But Colorado Springs, to make it home, is just, I mean, I think that a lot of people just don't even understand how incredible it is here. Now, you know, you get what you give, in a sense, right? If you just, you know, tunnel vision and grind for a living, then maybe this all passes you by. But I've been, again, blessed in my life to where I've been through enough things in my life to where I can actually enjoy my surroundings and take advantage of that. So yeah, Colorado Springs is a cool place.
Cool. Love it, man. So let me go into the next question, which is really cool. For everybody out there who's watching, seasoned or newer into the business, to kind of pick at your brain a little bit for success, right?
Yeah.
So if you could look back on your career thus far, Greg, and break down maybe 1 or 2 things that you added to your business to take it from one level to the next, what does that look like?
To take my business from one level to the next. You know, honestly, it's kind of just what I just alluded to earlier. Okay. Having the ability, when I was in production and I was an originator, I really was busy. And that was great, right?
Sure.
I was very committed. I went into work and I worked, and I left work. And I figured out a way to leave work. You know, I was still very, you know, I don't want to say subservient, but, you know, I was very good about taking calls after hours and contacting people and things to that nature. But I was able to separate myself enough from what I just focused on and drove myself to do every day to actually get into not just spending time with my family, not just being with friends, but actually doing some things for my own head and things that were good for me. And so I've been able to find many different things that I enjoy that I can do that. And kind of like we were talking about yesterday, how you have this stress that you deal with. How do you step outside of your stress? And once you do you go right back into it, or do you kind of stay outside of it?
Right.
And so for me, it was maybe kind of just stepping back a little bit and thinking about some things that were really good for me to do for myself collectively. And by doing so, I've found some peace, and I've found the ability to focus more, and maintain a high level of motivation as well. So I think those are things that's something that really stands out to me that I've done in order to take my business to another level and success.
I think that's huge advice to look at, and a lot of people, it's systems coaches, but I think you took it internally to say, hey, this is what I did for my life to add balance, and to take the time to recharge for yourself. That way you can continue to produce higher notes. You're not wearing yourself or burning the candle at both ends, right? So I think that's huge notes for everybody to take away, myself included, because the highest levels of producer, it's go, 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 non-stop. So to be able to take a second to breathe, stop and smell the roses, right?
I mean, and that's cool. Everybody's got their own journey, and I'm approaching 50, so I've been around. I've been through the school of hard knocks, and this is what I've found works for me. People like to grade success, and I don't want to generalize, but success a lot of time is graded upon your income and things to that nature, and that's great, right? I mean, there's so much to be said for people who have made it to certain levels of organizations or done it independently and become wealthy and things to that nature. That's awesome. But for me, that isn't as important as having a balance and having,
People do judge off that. And look, the more we make, the more we can give. I'm not a money hater when it comes down to that by any means, but I think that piece that you're talking about for balance and finding your own way, it's a constant struggle, but it is necessary for you to continue to grow and enjoy your life. It's not just all about the money. So that's why I really consider you a Titan, Greg. It's not just about production. It's about your direction and the legacy you're leaving, and then the support that you have from your people, but also your family. So I think it's all good stuff for everybody to take away. There's no doubt on that.
And the 16 years tenure maybe.
Well, that helps, right?
Well,
there's something there. There's something there.
There's been some tough bumps in that road, right? Where you talk about zeros in the bank account. I mean, there were literally zeros in the bank account at times. And
negative zeros,
I'm just saying. So, but there's something about this industry. There's something about what we do or what I do as a lender. When I was in production and now into management, it's just it's new all the time. It's troubleshooting. It's being resourceful, and it's figuring things out, right, to get to the outcome that you want to achieve. Because at the end of the day, when we're at work, we have people that are counting on us, and so there's a lot of responsibility involved. And I think that's another thing too. People put that pressure on themselves, and there's a high amount of pressure coming from multiple ends,
right?
With underwriting and with the customers and with the closing department and the appraisers and everything else. I mean,
and sometimes it's just overwhelming. So to have the ability to step aside from that and decompress, and I think it's pretty important stuff.
Love it, man. Huge notes for everybody to take. Hopefully you wrote that down. So
You're
let's
a funny guy.
let's go into the next one. Now, this one's a challenge question, so this is not easy for everybody to share. Look, we all deal with challenges, whether it's now into the past or something we haven't dealt with yet, loss of any kind. So, but it's not necessarily what happens, but how we overcome that challenge. So if you could share something that you dealt with that challenged you in your life, Greg,
Yeah.
that you overcame, that made you a stronger man because of it. What does that look like?
Well, again, I grew up on the coast of California, and there was a lot of interesting things going on in the late '80s when I was in high school,
Sure.
and through the '90s. I used to surf a lot and hung out with some probably not so productive, motivated, inspirational type of people.
Right.
And so, look, I made some bad choices, right? So if there's, one thing that I've learned is, number one, I'm completely the ability to be where I am today and some of the consequences that I could have suffered for choices that I have made in my life. Again, it's just about a blessing. And so I really try to remember that and humble myself and embrace that and how that's applicable to today would be with just slowing down when I make decisions and evaluating the consequences of those decisions. I wish that I had done that when I was younger.
Okay.
I think that I would have just, I don't know, I just wish that, I think that would have been a real help for me to grow more rapidly than I have in my life. I think that it stunted my growth, and so I look at that, and I don't regret it because this is all part of my journey, but at the end of the day, if I could go back and maybe change that piece, I'd like to take it out and see the accelerated growth and maybe where I'd be even today. So,
right. I think that that's a huge thing to share is decisions, right? And you can't point out any single person who said, "Yep, I made perfect decisions my whole life, and I never regret doing that." I think the fact that you're just calling that out and saying, "Hey, I made some not so great decisions when I was growing up. I don't know what kid did or didn't." I mean, to me that's perfect. But you moving on from it and saying, "Hey, I'm blessed and I'm fortunate enough to have recognized that." Trying to tell myself to slow down, make sure that I'm making the right decisions at the right time through my time frame in life, I think is huge because a lot of things could have happened and they didn't. So I think that that's wonderful to say out there. We all deal with it.
It would go in the question of why. That would fall under that category as well.
Sure.
That's also a big why. I've been given multiple opportunities to because I certainly have a purpose, and I haven't fulfilled my purpose entirely. So
Not yet.
I'm with the new baby coming on the way, and things are going to change around the Shelley house pretty soon. So
I love it, man. I'm excited. I really am.
And you, sir.
Yeah. Right around the corner, man.
Right around the corner for the first
time. Little
new
baby girl.
Fowler to the.
Watch out, everybody. Coming at you.
Pretty cool, man. I'm super excited for you.
We're very excited and very blessed. So
it's going to be awesome, man.
Yeah, we're really, really excited. But so going into that for the next, and thanks for sharing, man, because the challenges, it's not easy to air that out for everybody. But let's go into a slightly softer question. So, and you kind of already alluded to it a little bit, but if you could travel back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice or two, what would you say to younger Greg? That he would actually listen to, right? Because that matters.
Just slow down, buddy. Stop thinking you know so much and know everything. I mean, it's incredible to me. I understand the testosterone thing. I get it, right? But man, at the end of the day, it's just and I'm pretty mellow today, right? And of course, I haven't shared with everybody why, and I guess maybe now I will. But I'm a little bit more off the rails than this typically, right? I'm usually a little bit more animated and things like that.
Right.
and maybe some of you have heard, I know that you and I have discussed this, so I have a heavy heart today with a U.S. bank co-worker and friend of mine. His name is Tim Cannon, and he lives in Telluride, and he's been a local down there for 30 plus years, and he's just the most amazing guy. As I've mentioned to you, every time we go to a function, he and I are just magnetic towards one another. We have this incredible connection, and he's just one of those people that you don't meet often, where you have that just indescribable connection with.
An energy, right?
I don't know, it's just, he's just an awesome guy. And so anyway, Tim went, and he was training for, I believe it's called the Rundala, and it's out of Telluride. And you know, he went out on Sunday morning to do a 10-hour hike from the base of the mountain to the peak of Iron Mountain, and Tim has not returned. And so it's been really hard for me because they've had a massive search and rescue operation happening, and as of last night, they discontinued the search. So I guess my only ask would be for you, obviously, and for anybody that's watching this, just to keep Tim Cannon in your thoughts, and pray for Tim, if you would, for a safe return. We certainly have not given up on him returning,
Right.
but it has just been a very challenging week for me to get through. So with that being said, the question was again about how would I change myself when I was younger.
What advice would you give yourself that way?
I don't know, man. I mean, I was just such an out of control, kid, and just all over the place, and just I think that I just would really slow down and respect people more, respect people with more wisdom than me more, listen to what people are saying when they speak to me, not hear them, but actually listen to them.
Sure.
And I think that would be one of the major things that I would have done differently.
Right.
As a young guy.
That's big advice for anybody, not just for young Greg, but also for this Greg specifically. So everybody out there, I mean, I met this particular Greg at the very beginning of my career, and he was nice enough to, and I don't know why, but he was nice enough to almost take me under his wing to a certain standpoint and give me advice and be honest and genuine. A new guy not coming from here in the business, and he's just talking about bringing value and being genuine and honest and follow up and follow through. So the fact that you did that years and years ago, Greg, it still sits well within my heart, so I appreciate that.
I think you've paid me back many times, my friend.
No, but I wanted to say that to everybody. It just means a lot, and I think that when it comes down to giving that piece of advice, is just listening to wiser, more seasoned professionals. And I'm not just saying seasoned because you're older, right? There's young people that are very seasoned in their life, and there's older people who are just starting out. But you are a very seasoned professional when I met you, and you're even more seasoned now, so I just appreciate it. And I've always been a sponge with you, just learning and growing. So I
isn't it funny how our relationship has manifested since then, from just taking the time to sit down with someone and talk to them, and how much of the time did it take of mine to do that, right? What do we spend, an hour or two with one another?
Sure, yeah.
And now we have a friendship that we've known each other since essentially you started in the business.
Yeah.
And so I think that, that, look how valuable that was. How many people, or even myself, maybe even years prior to that, would have been like, hey, nice to meet you, I'm Greg. Yeah, man, I'm sorry, I'm really busy, I can't really catch up.
That's most people.
And then then our friendship never manifests. So there's lessons to be learned in everything we do each and every day, and I guess that would be another why.
Love it.
If you're not getting something out of every day with an interaction that you encounter, and it doesn't matter specifically what the encounter is, but if you don't kind of just sit there and maybe think to yourself, I'm sure you probably are getting that out of every day.
Right.
I hope you are. I know I am.
I think so. I think everybody out there, hopefully they are. But that's a great ad, Greg. I mean, thank you for sharing that. That's huge, huge advice. So let's go into the feeding of the mind question, because there's a lot of professionals out here and consumers that just want to know what the Titans are feeding their minds with, what they continue to learn and grow. And it's there, man. I know you're giving me that face.
So
books, podcasts, influencers.
yeah, I mean, I am, I feed my mind with maybe different stuff than some people do.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
I kind of like the outdoors a little bit,
Okay.
and
Just a
so
little bit.
yeah, and I kind of like adrenaline sports a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I a lot of times will feed my mind with my interests and my hobbies. And I don't want to get into what those are.
No, you're
It
good.
doesn't really matter, but I spend a lot of time doing those things, and so if I'm just kind of chilling out, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times it's kind of mindless stuff, but it's downtime for me.
Right.
But in regards to like a book that I'm reading right now, I mean, this is a book that I've been reading. I haven't quite finished it, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty cool book. It's Escape from Camp 14. This is
Okay.
about a North Korean kid that basically was born and raised in a labor camp. So,
Wow.
and his escape from North Korea, and it's interesting.
Sure.
An interesting read, and again, I haven't quite gotten through it yet, but that's kind of some downtime
Sure.
stuff that I like to maybe read or do while I'm not. God, people must think I might be narcissistic or something, man.
What do you think, everybody?
Right?
What's
So,
going on?
Yeah, but this is just kind of what I do, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
everybody has their own jam, so
Yeah. Well, you and I are very similar this way when you talked about likes and interests and doing research and due diligence into that, whether it's online research about another gadget or a different trail or anything along those lines. It's not always just about business books or motivational books or mindset. It's sometimes that's a part of your balance and recharge. So it doesn't have to be anything specific. That's a great share.
I mean,
when it comes down to it.
I read on politics, I won't lie, and
Sure.
the market and the economy, and that's all stuff that's, I mean, I just do that just because, I just do it. I don't know why, I just do it. I have an
Right.
interest in it. I
Sure.
have noticed, like, throughout my life, these interests come and go. Like, I'll be really into this, and then maybe 10 years, like baseball. We went to the game yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I used to be a huge Rockies fan. I mean, my wife and I would go to like 20 games a year. I couldn't even, I love the Rockies still.
Right.
But the interest isn't really there. So things are constantly evolving for me, I think.
Which is great.
With interests and just, balance.
Sure. And I think that's a good point to add. With people out there, it's okay to test things out, try new things, really bring in new information into your life. It doesn't have to be stuck into hard, fast. Well, I liked this 10 years ago. It's all right. Your mindset is adjusting. As you age, hopefully you're getting more seasoned. You're thinking about things differently. So obviously likes and interests. Some things are never going to go away.
Life happens, man.
I'm a big movie guy. I don't think I'll ever stop loving movies.
Yeah.
But it's just a part of what we do in our life. And hey, it's cool stuff. So everybody, just so you know, I'm going to put the link for the book down below so you can follow along and try to morph your mind like Greg Shelley here. So that'll be really good stuff. So but last question, man. This has been really great. Chock full of information. A lot of people out there can take away. But this is the question we wrap everything up with, and it comes down to summing you up with a mantra or a quote that you might live by or that sticks out to you. What does that look like for Greg Shelley?
Right. So I don't know. It's I don't want it to sound cheesy or cliche, but it really kind of is. Keep it real.
All right. Keep it real.
Just keep it real. And one of the things we kind of talked about, and I'd like to share the fact that you asked me about mentors, and hey, one of the questions is going to be like on social media or something like that.
Yeah, influencers.
Do you have somebody that you follow that's inspiring to you and things to this nature? And I don't want to sound corny or cheesy, okay? But really, the first person, and I always kind of roll with the first thing that comes to my mind, was Greg. I mean, if you look at Greg and you think about how, he and I met, like, your second day in this business?
Yeah, it was the first week.
I mean, you've got this cool show with this incredible platform for people to talk about their success, talk about themselves and their lives, and share pieces of themselves with other people.
Sure.
This is something that you've created amongst where you are with the company that you stand with, or that you currently represent. I mean, I think that you're quite inspirational.
Well, thanks, Greg. That means a lot.
I think that it's pretty neat how far that you've come. I mean, I don't think I run into anybody in this town who doesn't know you. It's
hopefully in a good way.
really quite bizarre, but you get out there and get after it. And I mean, you know, I think so many people wish they could do that, right? It's just really hard to step out of your comfort zone all the time.
Right.
And you do it. I think I asked you the other day, so when you were out doing sales calls and you were meeting all these people, how many sales calls were you doing a week? And I think you said something like 40.
Yeah, it was 6 to 8 a day.
6 to 8 a day.
Yeah, Monday through Friday, but I still work Saturdays and I mean, it's a lot.
It's an incredible amount, and the focus and drive, which is another thing which is very inspirational. Where does that drive come from? I mean, you obviously know, and like I said, maybe we'll switch the chairs one day and someone will be the host and you can go ahead and be a Titan and talk
sure.
about your successes. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think you're a very inspirational dude, man, and
Well,
I think
thanks,
it's
Greg.
awesome
Thank you.
where you've come in your career and what you're doing with this, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, thanks, man. You know, I appreciate you saying that. You don't have to, and you know, you taking the time on the show, it's an absolute honor. I know there's so many people out there that have taken a lot from it. I definitely want to say, Greg, you are an official real estate Titan.
Okay, dude.
When it comes to it, you're just an awesome guy, man.
Right
so
on.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, everybody, for taking the time. As always, every Tuesday and Friday afternoons, a different Titan, different location. Thank you so much for all your love and support, and we'll catch you guys on the next live episode of Real Estate Titans. Take care.
It'd be funny if it wasn't even on.
I think it is on. There we go. It took a, it locked up.